What's going on, guys? Your boy Freecy here, and welcome to my review of Speak No Evil. With it being Friday the 13th, I thought I'd take this opportunity to do this film review on this day. So think of this as a Friday the 13th special, because how often do I get to talk about a movie in general at all on a Friday the 13th? Because it rarely ever happens. It's like a freaking eclipse. So again, think of this as my Friday the 13th special for y'all. So this was something, again, that I was looking forward to. Maybe not as much as other films that I've reviewed or have yet to review, but it was just enough to pique a little interest. This is the latest from Blumhouse, a film company that I deeply respect. Some of their films are hit and miss. Some are good, some not so much, but it's a film company that I deeply admire. So when I started seeing the trailers and the ads for this thing, I was a little hesitant. I wasn't quite there just yet. But as time proceeded, as time marched on, I started warming up to it. It is a remake of the 2022 Danish film of the same name. And essentially in the film, you have this couple who are invited by this other couple to their country farmhouse for a weekend holiday getaway. Only to find out that something cynical lies deep within, as their hosts aren't who they seem to be. This is something that seemed like it would be right up my alley. It looked pretty intriguing, but just how good was it? Can I honestly say that this was the one that gave Blumhouse that kick it needed to stay on top? Or was this just another ship heading for that iceberg? Starting off the positives for Speak No Evil, I do gotta admit, the setting, the backdrop for the farmhouse was actually pretty good. It was pretty interesting. It's everything in a horror film like this that you would expect. Just that feeling of no one else around, kind of like a cabin in the woods feeling. You got this farmhouse that's kind of connected to a cabin, but it's not really a cabin. I guess you could call it a cabin, to each his own. But it's that same kind of cliche to where you have this couple that's out in the middle of nowhere, to where nobody can hear you scream. There's no signal, there's no cell service, there's nowhere to hide, there's nowhere to escape. It's the perfect setup for a horror film like this. It gave it sort of that dark and eerie feel, not as much as other films that I've seen, but it was close adjacent. I like that in my horror films. I like feeling that, suspenseful dread and that danger that characters gets put in. That's what makes a good horror film, to me. And I appreciated that aspect of it. Now I gotta talk about the elephant in the room, James McAvoy. He was the heartbeat of this film. He kept my interest at an all-time high through most of it. I mean, hell, he was the main reason, the main source, if you would, that roped me into this film in the first place. Outside of playing Charles Xavier from the X-Men series, he's known to play these weird, diabolical parts, Glass and Split being prime examples of them. He played such psychotic parts in those, but for Speak No Evil, I think he ramped it up a few notches. He definitely ramps up that crazy notch, that crazy level up a few notches, and it definitely shows. It definitely shows 100% here. Almost to the point to where even before he goes nuts, even when he seems normal, you just can't take your eyes off of him. To the point to where you're not even paying attention to the other characters. Eventually I do, but you just can't take your eyes off him because you don't know what he's going to do, because he just has that cynical, doom-like presence about him that you just can't look away.
Oh, well, that is very sweet of you to say.
Like I said, I did eventually focus on other characters. About 80% of the film, I just couldn't take my eyes off of him because I never knew what he was going to do. Because you knew he was psychotic, from the get-go, from the ads and the trailers, you knew he was just off his rocker. And it definitely shows with his performance, especially when you watch the film. It became painfully apparent when he started raging out towards the kids, to where it became obvious at this point that this guy was just a ticking time bomb waiting to go off any second. And he also brought out a sort of a comedy vibe. Now, this is not a comedy film by a long stretch, but the way his performance was, and just that awkwardness he brought out to some of the other characters to where they'd feel uncomfortable. And some of his lines of dialogue would come off so awkward, but his performance overshadowed that to an extent to where you get a few chuckles out of him, a few laughs because his performance was so good despite his lines of dialogue, because the way he would say it. It would be so awkward, but his performance would be so good that it got a chuckle out of me. And I wasn't the only one. The theater was like halfway packed. They were laughing at the same lines that I was. It's just that awkwardness that he brings out that's so strong that it just kind of gets a giggle out of you. And that's how good of a performance he did. Just these very strong, awkward moments that I just couldn't help but laugh. I don't think no one else could have pulled that off as well as he did. Mackenzie Davis was pretty cool too, was pretty good. She was the concerned mother of the little girl. And she was also the one who figures out that right from the get-go that something was off about these people. She was the first one to actually tell that something was not right. That something felt way off from the jump. She seemed to have been the only smart character in this film, which there's a little bit of a downside to her, which I'll get into here in a bit. But she seemed to have been the only smart person that figures everything out from the jump. And because of that, she was a character I rooted for. Again, not a perfect character, which I'll get into here in a minute. But still, she was someone I rooted for all the way through to the end. Even the kids did a really good job. Especially in Hough, or Hough, if I'm not pronouncing that name, I apologize. The one that played the little boy, he's the mute kid. He's the one that was with James McAvoy and his girl. He has his moments. He definitely has his moments, especially by the third act. He definitely has his moment to shine. I thought he was pretty cool. I thought he was pretty good. He's an actor that I don't really know of. I've tried researching him. I think this may have been his feature debut. But nonetheless, I thought he pulled it off pretty well. And speaking of that third act, it was pretty kick-ass. I enjoyed how the film wrapped up. You know, usually in a movie like this, you have to have that one kick-ass third act that you remember it from. You know, I know all movies attempt to do this, but I think for Speak No Evil, they did a really good job. Especially when everything is revealed, you know, certain things gets revealed that sort of jolts that shock value up a bit, which I deeply appreciated. I thought it was awesome. It had a perfect blend of horror and suspense and a little bit of action, if I'm being completely honest here. But I thought they handled that really good. I thought the third act had played out really well. Unfortunately, as cool as the third act was, that was its downfall for the rest of the film. As I dive into my negatives, the pacing was way off. The film dragged on for so long, a little bit too long. The whole entire first and second act felt like a little bit of an eternity. It basically sets up this couple who meets this other couple at this retreat, and then they invite him to their country farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere. And from then on, it takes it about a little over an hour to actually get interesting. Yes, there's enough character development here, which is always a good thing, but there's a little bit too much. I felt like the film kind of dragged on. It felt a little sluggish. I wasn't the only one that felt this way. I talked to several people after the film, and they felt the exact same way I did. The film dragged on, and I felt like there was a bunch that could have been cut out that really didn't need to be there. And I won't get into any specifics, but I just felt like it did drag on. It did feel sluggish, and I didn't feel like a lot of it was necessary for it to finally get to its point. Because like I said, it took a little bit over an hour, and I thought that was a little bit of an over-exaggeration on their part. I just felt like they threw in a little bit too much than what was needed. It does drag on for sure, and you can definitely feel it. Almost to the point to where I almost took my phone out to see what time it was, and I never like doing that during a movie. I hate doing that during a movie. That's never a good sign.
Please disperse! Nothing to see here, please!
There was some common sense errors involving the parents on Mackenzie Davis's part, to where some of the choices on Mackenzie Davis and Scott McNairy's involving their kids was a little bit questionable. Now, as much as I liked Mackenzie Davis's character, as much as I admired her for her self-awareness with this other couple, figured everything out, I thought her choices involving her kid was a little bit questionable. Like the fact that letting your kid go on a motorcycle with a complete stranger, even if it was just around the block, or leaving them with a babysitter recommended by these people that they just met the day before, something about that just was not cool. I'm not a parent, but even I could see that just, no. Something about that was just not right, and it just kind of made you wonder, okay, maybe this couple wasn't all there either. Not as psychological as that other couple, but maybe they just wasn't all there in common sense. I mean, I know I wouldn't let my kids do anything with anybody I didn't know. But in closing, was this something that pissed me off? No. Was this something that annoyed the living crap out of me? Of course not. Despite its flaws, I had a decent enough time with this. Will it be something that I'll watch again? Maybe, but not for a while. It's not something that I just feel the need to go see again and again. In the end, it had its moments. For me, however, it's not something I care to revisit anytime soon. It's decent enough to just stream. Well, that's it for this one, guys. So Speak No Evil. What was your thoughts on it? Have you seen it yet? Are you somebody that found some enjoyment out of this? Did you deem this to be the greatest to hit us in a while? Or was this okay? Was this just another Blumhouse dud? Leave me a comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. I really do appreciate it. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share if you like what you see. Once again, happy Friday 13th. Watch out for you-know-who, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace. Oh shit, I'm out.